um, as Chris said, any questions, feel free to follow up with. I'll start at the beginning, I guess. Going way back, I grew up on the East Coast in Pennsylvania, in the Poconos. I don't know if anyone's ever been there. It's kind of, I was like up in the sticks, small town, but it's kind of resorty too. A lot of bears, skiing, but very different from out here. But I was an athlete in high school, and I was on the track team and tennis team. And then in college, I was recruited to run track. And so I ran hurdles and sprints at the University of Notre Dame, where I was for 4 years and loved every second of it. Still coming off of St. Patrick's Day yesterday. Um, that's a big one at Notre Dame, as you can imagine. Um, and then, after I graduated, I actually moved to New York City for a while, and I had majored in communications in undergrad. I did have a psychology class or two, and found it really interesting, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do yet with my career. And then I was in New York City for a while, and I worked there. I was working a bit as a teacher, like an assistant teacher at a private school, and just growing up, I think too, at the same time, and gaining some life experience, which always fuels your work later on, as a side note. Um, and then I was there when 9/11 happened, and that was obviously, game changer for everyone. And, that really got me to thinking. There were, in the class I was teaching, that many families were affected. There were kids who had lost a parent, and everybody had a story. And in fact, my husband was in Tower 2 when it was hit, and obviously made it out. But it really, just a light bulb kind of went off for me, that I wanted to be a psychologist, because I wanted to be able to help people on a deeper level and have the training and the qualifications to do that. And so that's when I decided to go back to school. And I was also kind of ready to leave the city. So I moved out to California, and I got my master's and my doctorate at Pepperdine. And all the while, I still kind of had my hand in athletics. I knew in some capacity I wanted to work in athletics or with athletes or coaches. And so, whether it was, I would give presentations at conferences, or trainings, workshops for coaches, or even sport parents. And just kind of on the side, then I had internships. You have to gain hours towards licensure, and was able to do some of those. One job I had was at the counseling center at Pepperdine, which is a great way to work with student athletes, because there wasn't one on staff. And so in the counseling center, really all the athletes got sent to me, just because I already had some experience. And and that really helped in a lot of ways pave the way for where I am now, because that young adulthood phase is so rich, as you are probably all experiencing now. But it's such a learning platform. Um, and it's about the same age range that I work with now in professional sports. So and you're not having to necessarily defer to parents. You can really just work with the person. And so I really loved that job, and I took a lot with me. And eventually, after I was licensed, started my own practice, and again, kind of was started really honing in on sports psychology. And my work with athletes just increased, and I'm kind of the only person in my area anyway that does all that I do, in terms of sports and psychology. So the mental skills and performance work, and then also the clinical psychological aspects of the field, and then tying them together. And I love being able to do that as a psychologist. There are a lot of people who do mental skills work with athletes. But then if it gets into kind of the psycho-emotional stuff, then they need to refer out for that, which a lot of people do. I just kind of like being able to do it all myself. And, after you build that relationship and, kind of extends the continuity. But a lot of what I take into my job now, I also learned, having been an athlete and from personal experience. And we didn't have a sports psychologist when I was in college. There was a counseling center and there was a psychologist who worked with athletes but wasn't a sports psychologist. And now that's definitely changed at most of at least the big time athletic schools. They have at least one sports psychologist on staff, and often they have one designated for a particular team, which I love to see that trend growing because I know I could have used one. And it really, you see how that holistic approach really enhances performance. And that to me is the selling point. I mean, and that's the buy-in for the athletes. Like, hey, it's easy to put your personal stuff on the back burner, but if it's going to help me be better as an athlete, okay, I'll try it. And ultimately, usually the people have a good experience. And I don't think I've had anyone on the team not come back, to keep working through stuff. So that brings me to the present. So I got hired by the Rams, and I've been working with them now. This will be my going into my fourth year. So soon after they moved out here. And so it's been really fun. I've been able to kind of grow with the LA team. And I'm really lucky because the Rams are very supportive of that holistic approach, of that whole person, and you help the man, you help the player approach. So, from the top down. And so I'm very supported in my work. I'm able to develop new ideas and implement new programs, or we actually developed a much more structured program for the guys on injured reserve last year. We kind of started it the year before, but implemented it last year, mostly virtually, but we'll be able to build on that in the coming year too. So just to explain a little bit about my role with the Rams, I'm the team psychologist, and as I was saying, I work with both performance aspects and mental health aspects and everything in between. And I work with the athletes. I work with a lot of coaches too, and sometimes some staff members. Um, it depends on the season, but I see a lot of the guys on IR, and that, I think we try not to make anything mandatory other than like a court ordered case or if somebody got in trouble. But sometimes athletes are nudged, and then other times they elect to seek my support. And sometimes guys have no issue. There's some guys who are very public about it and encourage other players to do it, and even talk to the media about it sometimes. And I love that because they have such a platform to help reduce the stigma of mental health, and especially among athletes, when I think that can be put last. And um, and so I feel like we have a bit of a responsibility to, quite frankly, make it cool and help, younger athletes see the worth of it and the benefits for them as an athlete, but as a whole person, especially, and how, the skills that you even learn in doing that work transfer into later life in many ways too. So, so then I work with all the rookies. Every year when our new crop of rookies comes in, I give rookie trainings, many of which are now mandated by the league. But it's nice because it gives me a chance to kind of get to know the new crop of people coming in, and help familiarize them with our program. And the beginning of the season, usually it's in person, but last year was via Zoom. Right when training camp starts, we all come together as a team the first morning, and all the staff and coaches, and for the new people especially, they do introductions and they talk about, our medical staff and what their what their roles look like, and I'm introduced, and we talk a little bit about our mental health program. And it's good because they can kind of, put names to faces. And I've definitely had guys kind of seek me out later who did want to maybe be more discreet about it. And sometimes, even if they don't feel comfortable coming to my office at the practice facility, they can always come to my private practice office, which is in Westlake Village, and, not have to worry about it then. And now, even during the off season, the guys I've kept seeing most people that I was seeing. And I think, this whole virtual world we live in now has, made it easy to kind of, even guys who went home or are in a different state during the off season, we've been able to kind of keep up and still meet regularly or semi regularly. So, so yeah, I think, obviously in the off season it slows down a bit, in terms of kind of the collaborative work that we do. Um, and then during the season, we have kind of a small group, including myself, our head trainer and director of sports medicine, our director of player engagement, and our strength and conditioning coach. And we meet once a month at least and do a roster review where we will go through every name in the roster and basically red light, yellow light, or green light each person in terms of how they're doing as a whole, not just performance wise, but really like kind of, okay, you know, he's doing okay, but let's keep an eye on him. This guy really could use some extra support. And so we really do check up on people and genuinely care about their well-being. And the Rams do a great job of putting that first. And I know there have been guys who have missed games because they had a family commitment or a family issue going on, and that came first. And that's good to see, because it's so cutthroat in that world, and even now getting down to collegiate and high school levels. So I like that, we can also model that, winning isn't everything, despite that's what everyone's trying to do. um, so let's see, what did I leave out? Um, Sometimes I'll give trainings, usually a couple a year, to staff, or I'll give little workshops. The year we went to the Super Bowl, come January or end of January, everybody was so fried and nobody was sleeping. And so I just did like a staff decompression kind of clinic where I just taught them some relaxation exercises and helped them decompress and just chill for a little while. And they're not going to give themselves permission to do that. So I said, I'm going to force you during this time in this room to just relax. And it's funny. I remember one girl who worked in operations, and I said, at one point I said, just relax, put your hands in front of you. You can close your eyes if you want. And I remember looking over at her, and she was like, had her eyes closed, but she was clenching her hands. So without calling her out too much, I said, if you find that you are, if you have tension in any areas, like your hands, just try to relax them. And she started laughing because she knew it was her. But there are fun ways to that keep this work light. And that's one thing I love about the sport world is it's different every day. I'm not sitting in an office every day doing the same thing. Getting to be on the sideline sometimes at practices and be a part of camp and then be in the facility, working through issues and having a say. And I know it's not that way with all clubs. I've gotten to know a lot of the other team clinicians, and that's why I feel very lucky. And it's come down to sometimes where they will ask me, should this guy play in the game this weekend? And I kind of have to give them that say and help with that final call. Um, so it can feel like you feel the pressure sometimes too. In those instances, it's hard to really know 100% what the right decision is, and so you kind of make your best guess based on everything you know. I'm often asked, what are the hardest parts of your job? I would say that one of the hardest things is, as a psychologist, everything is confidential when I talk to people. HIPAA rules apply. When you get into sports psychology, whether it's in pro sports or with any athlete you work with, sometimes they want you to talk to their coaches and collaborate, or their parents, if they're minors, really want to know like what's happening, what's wrong with them, or what can we do, and sometimes they're the problem. But especially with the younger ones, it's like they're getting younger and younger. I saw a 9-year-old, 8-year-old with just anxiety, and his parents made him come to me and what's going on with him. And he was a baseball player and his swing's all messed up, and can you fix him? And they were so over the top, and just over involved, and all he did was eat, sleep, and breathe baseball. He was on 3 separate teams, 2 club, and I think 1 was with the local league, had a private coach, and then every morning before school at about 7 in the morning, would go to the park across the street and hit balls with his dad or grandpa. And I thought, "My god, this poor kid is burned out." And, you see that a lot these days is burnout and everything that comes with it, overstress injuries and the mental fatigue. And then there's a statistic that this was a couple years ago, so it may even be more, but 75% of kids are dropping out of sports by age 13 because it's not fun anymore. And that's so sad because, it does so much for you, your mental health, your physical health, relationships, and self-esteem, and all of those things that, for the pressure to become that much, whether it's from parents, coaches, the community, it's just not right. And then as a whole other issue, the pay to play, and kids who are really talented who just can't participate because, sports can get so expensive. So there's a lot of issues within the sport world that the experts are kind of tossing around what to do about, and there are different organizations, and while you are at your level, that's one thing that's a great thing to become involved with in terms of kind of just gaining some experience, building relationships, find a cause and an organization. You can always even volunteer your work and become involved that way. But you become part of a conference in some way. You don't have to be presenting. You can either attend and network or help behind the scenes, help book speakers. There's creative ways of kind of entering the field more officially. So keep all that in mind. But I guess the bottom line for me is I truly love what I do. And that to me is the most important thing, no matter what you do, is to be happy doing what you're doing. And I really am. I love the flexibility. I have more during the off season than during the season, but I'm a mom, and so I'm able to, as much as I can, revolve my clinical hours around, my kids' school hours. And I like being the one to do drop offs and pickups as much as I can. And and, not shortchange that area for sure. So, I think that that is a big intro, but hopefully I also wanted to answer maybe some questions that people who have to leave might have. So, but that'll do it, I guess, for my intro, and then I'm happy to answer more questions that you might have.
All right, I think that's fair. We can squeeze in one question from a non-member if they're willing to unmute and ask their question, and then following that, we'll go ahead and enter our Q&A for the members only. So if anyone wants to ask a question, feel free to do so.
I'll ask a question. Hi, my name is Chandler.
Hi,
My
Taylor.
question is, what advice would you give to a student that wants to work with professional athletes in the future?
A lot of professional teams now do offer internships. It depends on kind of the department, but I know like um, our training staff always has an intern or two. Sometimes we just have interns for camp, but that's a great way, to just see the operation of things and how kind of the whole machine works, and learn about that type of schedule and get exposed to it firsthand so that you can see like, would I really want to be part of this? It's very there's a real grind, and some people love that and they're great at it. Other people it's like, oh, I don't know if I could, manage all this. But so really checking into what types of internships are available, connecting with people, even like in town, if you have like physical therapists or private businesses that specialize in that, or that work with high school sports, getting to know those people are great, because that's who you could get a lot of referrals from. And people, even pediatricians and family practitioners who see kids for, the athletes might be going to them because they have a physical injury, but then that there may be an underlying psychological issue going hand in hand with it. The physical issue might have led to excess stress, anxiety, depression. Um, and so, that's another good referral source. So, kind of thinking of those things, good people to connect with now. And, like I said, even as you're finishing your degree, um, you can start doing that now, and just kind of getting your name out there, and talking to coaches, especially at the youth level. A lot of that is volunteer. A lot of the coaches are parents, and as I said, you see these the mental stuff happening a lot earlier now, and youth coaches for sure are not trained at all in how to handle that, and they would welcome, even if you just offer to do like a free half-hour clinic on how to manage stress and make it kid friendly if it's for youth, and give a couple of strategies, and do a workshop on fun ways of building team cohesiveness, and take like one aspect, and offer to do a workshop on it, and things like that. And then, they remember you, and those kids eventually will be in high school, and then, potentially college, and potentially later on. But that can be a good place to start. And by the way, as I'm saying that, I remembered I didn't finish what I was saying about one of the most difficult parts of my job is, the coaches often want to know what's going on with the person, especially if they kind of recommended that person come talk to me. And so that can be tricky with confidentiality. So I will usually, ask the athlete first, and then remind the trainer or the coach, whoever recommended them, that I can't really tell them what we talk about, but I can let them know how they're doing. And that's already different from mental health work, because, you can't even say who you're working with then. But if an athlete is sent, they obviously know that that person knows. So, just kind of navigating that field was where I was going with that. But Chandler, I hope that helps answer your question.
It did. Thank you.
You're welcome.